a CNN News 18 exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. A daring night operation to rescue stranded Indian nationals from Sudan. A C-130J aircraft, ladies and gentlemen, rescued 121 people from a small airstrip about 40 kilometers north of Khartoum. The passengers included people who had no means to reach Port Sudan. The airstrip in question had a degraded surface with no navigational approach aids or landing lights. The aircrew used infrared sensors to ensure that the runway was free from any obstructions and carried out a tactical approach using night vision goggles. That's the big piece of breaking news that's coming in, ladies and gentlemen. The Indian Air Force carrying out this daring night rescue because these people, these 121 people who were trapped 40 kilometers north of Khartoum, had no way of getting to Port Sudan. So they brought the C-130J in the middle of the night to that spot that is just 40 kilometers north of Khartoum. And in pitch darkness, they landed the C-130J using night vision goggles and rescued the 121 Indians. I'm joined by my colleague Akash on the phone line, who's getting us this piece of break news. So Akash, a daring night operation just shows how committed we are to ensure that no Indian is left behind.
Exactly, and this was a daring operation indeed, and Aishman, it was one of the most difficult ones, in fact. At a time when a Turkish airplane that was on an evacuation mission was shot on, and the fight is still going on in Sudan, Indian Air Force has actually rescued these 121 Indians, and not just rescued, but rescued them in such a condition that it was not an ordinary mission. A small airstrip with no light, no security confirmation, and no landing support, in fact. And this happened in Wadi Saidna of Sudan. That is just 40 kilometers north of Khartoum. And, as far as the information that we have, Indian Air Force officers used infrared sensors and night vision goggles carried out this particular mission. The landings and takeoff was very typical, very challenging, but it was completed. The operation was, in fact, led by the Indian Defense Attaché and, was secured by 8 guard commandos of Indian Air Force. All 121 passengers were evacuated and were then subsequently taken to Jeddah. All of them are safe. In fact, the crew and all the Indian Air Force personnel are safe. It was a successful mission, in fact, operation, and will definitely be going down in the history of Indian Air Force for its exceptional execution, Aishman.
Right. Thank you, Akash, for getting us that piece of break news. I'm also joined by Group Captain MJ Augustine Vinod on the broadcast. Thank you, sir, for joining us on CNN News 18. Can you decode for us how difficult and how challenging such an operation is?
And absolutely. In fact, when C-130 came to the Indian Air Force, it came with all these mission parameters already enshrined in the operational requirement. And as you can see behind me, so this is where the Khartoum is, and along the river right on top of me is this Wadi Saidana, the little airstrip, which does not have night capability, mind you. And it did not even have, when I started my flying, we used to do night flying with something called goosenecks. It is like a kerosene lamps. We used to put it along the runway, and we used to practice our night landing. Even that was very, very challenging. Runway you couldn't see on finals, this lighted runway sometimes. But C-130 pilots, mind you, landed without anything because of technology that is on board using night vision goggles and something called synthetic runway. C-130 can create a synthetic runway for you in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that is the kind of capability it has. I can feed in certain parameters, and I can create a virtual runway in an area where I know that it is relatively free, like this particular area, and put my night vision goggles down. And I also want to demystify how this night vision goggle landing works. When you put the night vision goggle down, it is monochrome. So it is like what probably the snake sees. और हम यूज तो नहीं है कि हम जैसे सांप देखता है उस तरह से हम देखते हैं पूरी दुनिया को. We see in monochrome, and we have very little depth perception. It requires a great amount of skill and training to land in a night vision condition, and the cockpit, mind you, needs to be capable of, the lighting needs to be capable of accommodating this night vision goggles. Right. So these two things are already there in C-130. That is creation of synthetic runway and the cockpit being able to accommodate this night vision landing. Another thing, let me tell you, and most important, Gaurav, is Colonel Girewal, who is the defense attaché on ground. Not many people know he is a gallantry award winner, and he's used to facing bullets. Mm-hmm. So and that viral video where he is standing on the table and saying that, "Don't worry, boys, the Indian Army is here, and you will be back home safe, and each and every one of you will be safe. And after all of you leave is the time we will leave from here." So that is the kind of confidence he has instilled not only on the people being evacuated, but right. also on the team which is on the ground. He is leading these operations. He will leave. Colonel Girewal is not going to leave any stone unturned, and probably it is his brainchild that we are executing on the ground. And kudos to the complete team, the Indian Air Force, the Indian Army team, and team at Jeddah. Also, we are trying to evacuate people via sea as well. So right. Indian Navy too comes into picture.
Right. Thank you, Group Captain MJ Augustine Vinod, for... yeah, please finish.
All that fear that Siddharamaiah ji had, let me tell him, don't worry, sir, we will leave no Indian behind. आप चिंता न करें, हम सारे भारतीयों को वापस लाएंगे.
Right. Thank you. I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Group Captain MJ Augustine Vinod, for sharing your perspective on this daring night operation that the Indian Air Force has been able to execute on the ground in Sudan. But staying